Hey guys, Coach Brandon Krause here. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of conditioning and working that core. All right, working the abs, right, the rectus abdominis, and all the muscles associated with that core and your diaphragm and all that. First, I want to start with a little anatomy lesson. So you have that six-pack muscle, right, that everybody has. Mine's more like a four-pack right now, but we won't talk about that. The rectus abdominis. Let's talk about what the name means. Rectus, where it originates, well, you can imagine it's where my butt is, okay? So what those muscles attaches into my hips, into my pelvis, and it comes up and it comes into my sternum right here. And the job of that muscle is to bring my torso and my pelvis together. What the job is not is raising my legs, all right? So a very common and awesome ab exercise is the leg raise or the knee raise, but I think that the name is a little misleading because let's say I was hanging here and I was to just raise my knees like I'm demonstrating here. Now, in a secondary way, my abs are working, right? But really the primary mover of that motion that I just showed you is my hip flexors here on the top of my legs, right? But I don't want to work my hip flexors. I want to work that rectus abdominis. So now what I got to start thinking about is getting my pelvis to arc up because that's what's going to activate those muscles, all right? So instead of just bringing my knees up, I want to have my spine move and my pelvis start to arc up. I've heard a good analogy that you want to think of your spine like a burrito that you're trying to roll up, or maybe I just eat too much Mexican food, so that's what I'm thinking. But you want to have that spine start to have some flexion in order to really activate that rectus abdominis. So the classic knee raise is an excellent exercise where you're bringing that pelvis to your torso. If you want to add a little resistance, you can keep your legs straight and do the same thing. So in terms of really, helping define those individual muscles of your rectus abdominis, those knee raises, those leg raises are an excellent way to hit those muscles. But in terms of function, in terms of sports, that's really not an applicable thing. I mean, how often am I throwing my hips towards my torso? Not very often. Really what your abs do is they support your body and they really contribute to the rotation of your body. And that is something that will constantly be happening in the boxing ring. So a good way to train that is with another classic exercise called the Russian twist. In this exercise, I have some implement, a medicine ball. In my case, this is a 10-pounder. Doesn't have to be that heavy. So I balance on my butt. My legs are together. My legs are not crossed. Start getting out of the habit of crossing your legs because when you do this, one leg is always working harder than the other, and we don't want that. So we have our legs together. And what I do is, you see I'm looking in this direction, and now I'm looking in the opposite direction as I bring this ball to the ground. You also notice that I'm touching the ground. I'm not just doing something like this with a minimal range of motion. I want to make sure I maximize that range of motion coming here. And I feel it already. Also notice that my head is looking with the ball, not independent of the ball, all right? So most gyms have some sort of sit-up apparatus, right? And this is a good way to work that rectus abdominis. But like I said, maybe in terms of function is not the most preferential way to work for the athlete, for the boxer, right? Because when I perform this sit-up, I'm coming in this kind of extreme range of motion and then bringing my torso here. And you got to think to yourself, how often in the boxing ring am I doing something like this? Not very often, right? So you want to make that more applicable. Somehow I have a partner right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little ballistics. Something's going to be thrown. Throw me that ball. I'm going to draw it back and throw it out. So you see I've limited the range of motion. I've also added some sort of goal to this, which makes things better. Also makes things a lot more fun and enjoyable for this exercise. You may not have a bar to hang on for the leg raises. You may not have a ball to twist for the Russian twist. But the cool thing about training your core is you really don't need anything. Right here on the floor, I'll show you a number of different exercises that are very, very good for developing that area and have more function to them than maybe some of the other ones. First thing we're going to start with is what I like to refer to as knees to elbow here, and that gives us a little of that rotational strength, plus a bit of isometric action here. So I'm down here, and I want to bring my right elbow to my left knee. I want to hold it for a pause, and I want to repeat on the other side. Holding it for a pause gives me that isometric contraction that really activates those muscle fibers to the maximum. When I'm down here, I can certainly put my hands underneath my butt and give good old-fashioned leg raises here. And like we spoke about earlier, my pelvis is what I'm trying to manipulate when I really want to use that rectus abdominis muscle. So instead of just getting my legs up, I'm trying to also pick my pelvis up off the ground to get those muscles to really contract. So that's bringing my pelvis to my torso, but I certainly can bring my torso to my pelvis. And a way that we work that is what we call the invisible rope. So I want you to imagine there's a rope right here. And what I want to do is I want to reach up and grab that rope. And the further I can reach, the bigger a range of motion I can give this exercise, the better. There's more muscles than just your rectus abdominis. You have your obliques. You have a number of different muscles that make up your diaphragm that you need to train. You don't want to have it imbalanced, so you have side bridges here. Just chilling here and picking your hip off the ground. You can hold it for that pause to get that isometric benefit as well. And this is also a great exercise to help you with injury prevention. And the one I'll wrap up with that's really good for injury prevention and very applicable to a boxer is the good old-fashioned plank, all right? I'm gonna try to keep my body as flat as I can. My hips are down, and what you can't see is I'm pulling my belly button in. Hold this for a length of time, depending on your fitness level. And typically what I'll have people do for this exercise is to failure, literally until they can't hold it anymore. In terms of reps and sets and rest period, I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about your abs and thinking that these muscle fibers are different than any other muscle fiber in your body. They're not. When you train them intensely, when you've damaged them, they need to rest and recover and repair to get any kind of gain out of the exercise. If you never allow them to recover, you're never going to get those benefits that you're looking for. So people that tell you, well, the abs is different and you can train those every day. No, that person's probably just not training their abs intensely enough where they need that recovery period, a couple days, like anything else, like my bicep muscle, like my pectoralis. I'll tell you what is a bit different about the abs is the density of the fibers. It's a highly used area, and because of that, your body has tons of muscle fibers that make up this area. So it can handle a lot more volume in the acute of the training than maybe your bicep can or your lower back can. But once you have caused those micro tears, once you have intensely trained it, give it enough time to recover like anything else. I hesitated to talk about reps and sets here also because everybody's fitness levels are different. And you know, that plank that I just showed you earlier, I think the world record is something like 8 hours, right? I'm not going to recommend that to you, right? But I think anywhere from 1 minute to 10 minutes, you're going to have some sort of benefit to it, all right? Cycle in this training with your grado mesocycle where you're hitting your entire body to avoid any type of imbalance. And keeping your abs strong is also a good way to prevent any of those kind of back injuries that a lot of people are plagued with once they start a high impact sport like boxing. Like and subscribe.